Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And today I'd like to show you how I made this card. And this is one that is, I had a request from someone in my classes to make one that was in the catalog, in the Christmas catalog. And so here is the one in the Christmas catalog. And you can see it's similar to this one. Of course, I'm not capable of actually just doing one the way it is. I had to make some changes and some embellishments. But basically, it's this card, and it uses this stamp set, Merry Medley. And Merry Medley is a giant whole page stamp that gives you this, all of these various sayings about the season, and it really came out just as cute as it could be. And so I'm going to show you what I did to make this, and again, I'm changing it up just a little. So the one in the catalog was this top piece on a white base, and I added a red border to the back. The other thing I'm doing is when I put this together, the pine branches were long and very hard to make a circle out of. We managed to do it by cutting back some of the pine branches a little bit smaller, but in real life it's a little sparse looking. So my thought is to add more of the branches to this to give it more of a full look and get, by placing the branches at odd places, more of a full look. And the other thing is I changed the little greeting here, and I put a little red background on it. And the other thing I'm doing this time around is I'm putting a real ribbon bow on this. I have to admit I'm not terribly fond of paper facsimiles of bows, and so I'm going to add a real bow. And the other thing I'm adding to this time is, I don't know if you've seen these in the catalog, but they're little bells. Little red and silver bells. And so on the ones that I've made since then, I'm also hanging a couple of the little bells off of the bow or the top of the wreath here. So again, just slight variations on this, but I'm really pleased with the way it came out. And I often don't case things in the catalog, but this is going to cause me to think about looking at this a little bit more carefully. So what we need to do this is we need a whisper white base that measures 8.5 by 5.5, scored and folded at 4 1/4. Then we need a piece of real red, and this piece of real red is 4 1/4 by 5 3/8, and then the black, which is 4 by 5 1/4. And then we have the stamp, this big giant stamp. I used a couple of punches, a 1-inch punch and a 1 1/4 inch scallop punch to make my little tag. And the other thing I'm using is from the Pretty Pines set. I'm using these branches here for the inside of the card in the envelope to stamp them on. In this one, I actually used some of the branches, but I think the stamped one would actually look better. So those are the changes I'm going to make. So what we're using then is the Merry Medley stamp, which is here, and then I'm using from the Peaceful Pines this little 'Tis the Season stamp, because it was small enough to fit inside my 1-inch punch, and a little bit of this red and white twine. See anything else? Yes, this 1/8 of an inch handheld punch to punch in the top of the tag. So that's what we're doing, and let's go ahead and get started on this. So the first thing we can do is fold and burnish our card here. And let's see what happened to my, there it is. Okay, so there we have our card base all set. And we actually can go ahead and adhere this piece of red. It didn't feel quite right to me. I think I didn't quite get that folded straight. There. Okay. So now we can go ahead and adhere this piece on the white card base, and I'm going to do that using Tombow. And then basically until we're ready to assemble the card, that can just be set aside. It really is a pretty fast little card, and I'm really pleased with the results. It's very attractive. People in the class just loved it, and in fact several of them were going to order the stamp set and get together, and several of them wanted to make it for their Christmas cards for the season. So we can just set that aside, and what we're going to do is do our work on this. Now, when you have a stamp this size, I'm using my white craft ink, and with that ink, you're far better off to bring the ink to the stamp and really make this nice and inked up. And then you have to kind of pick a place. I tried lining this up, on one side to kind of get the corner exactly right, but I found that it left, this side has a blank space to it. Let me see that. So this side has a blank space. So I found that it was better to set it up so that I lined it up with the bottom, but put it more in the middle. That way I had images all the way across my piece. So for this kind of a background stamp, the thing that I found works the best is to take my piece, and I'm going to line it up with the bottom of the stamp and then just lay it across. Then if you take a piece of scratch paper and you lay it on top of your piece, then you can just press down on this. Your chances of turning this over and getting a good impression by putting the stamp down on the paper is minimal, only because it's such a big stamp. It's really hard to get even pressure on the whole thing on your paper. So I find that it's much easier to do it this way. And that way I'm pretty sure I'm going to get a good impression on this. Then you can remove your scratch paper and take any tool. I'm using my tweezers for this, and peel it off the stamp, and see there you've got your piece completely covered with things all the way along, and I think that's reasonably straight. If you have a pattern, it almost doesn't matter if it's straight, but for this one, because it's very linear, it was pretty important to get it straight. And that craft ink takes a bit to dry. I'm just going to wipe this off just because I know I'm going to put my hands in it before I'm done, and then I'll clean it later with my Stampin' Cleaner. But let me move this out of the way now. All right, so here we have our top piece, and I'm going to let that sit and dry for just a second, and while I do that, I'm going to do the rest of my stamping. Let's see. It occurs to me that the other piece I need is, oh no, I don't. All right, so I'm going to take a little piece of scrap white, and then here's my 'Tis the Season stamp, and I'm going to stamp that in black. You could do that in red too, I suppose. I like the idea of the black. And this is a little photopolymer, so I just want to get this There, I think that's a perfect impression. And let me put my black ink away. And then I have my 1-inch circle punch. And if you are careful, you can get this whole little saying in the circle. And there we have the "'Tis the Season" in the center of the little circle. Then I wanted to use my red punch, another piece of scrap red. So you need a little piece of scrap red and a little piece of scrap white to cut out. This is an old round scallop punch that I have that probably has since retired. But I find sometimes that the punches are a little easier to use than the dies. So here we go. We've got this to set on the top of that, and we'll just use a little bit of snail for that. And let's see. So I'm going to put a little bit of snail on the back of my tag here and center it on my little circle. Then I'm going to take my 1/8 of an inch handheld punch here, and I'm going to punch a little hole on the top of this piece. Now I'm going to do it the other way so I can see where this point is coming down. Just right on the top of the tag here. And there we have a little hole in there. And then I'm going to take a little bit of this red and white baker's twine, and I'm going to cut a length of that, probably more than I need, and feed that through the little hole. And what I'm going to do is, just like when you're sewing and you've threaded a needle, sometimes you just take the ends and you make a little knot. And that's mostly just to hold this together. I'll trim some of that off once I decide exactly where I want it on the card. Then the other thing that I did was I used these little bells, and they're just so cute. And they actually have a little ringer in them. So I'm going to take a red one and a silver one, and I'm going to take pre-cut a little piece of red thread, and I at first was putting this on a needle and trying to get it through the top of the little bells. And I'm going to show you here. The little bell has a little top. So it's a bell like any other bell with the folded ends down, and then it's got this little raised top. And what I found was, if I am patient, I can actually just push this piece of thread. Let me see. Let me grab this other end that hasn't been messed with too many times. And I can just push it through the top of that little bell on the top. And then I'm going to also do the same thing with the little red bell. See if I can get it turned around just right and get my little piece of thread to go through. So there I've got my 2 little bells on my piece of thread, and I'm going to do the same thing I did with the twine, just make a little knot at the top, and then I can always trim that back. Okay, the next thing you'll need to do, and I've done mine in advance, is to cut a handful of these little pine branches, and I did these out of garden green. And so I've got more than I need. I noticed on the one in the catalog and the way I made my prototype, it had 8 little boughs. So that's how many I used when I put this together. But like I said, I didn't think it looked full enough. So now we're going to try and put this together. So I think this has had a chance to dry a little bit between the time I stamped it and now. So what I'm going to do is work on just arranging. And on these, like I said, I thought they were a little bit long to really make a circle. So I'm just pinching off the bottoms of these, and I want to kind of just dry fit these around on the card. And I'll take a second and just do these in an arrangement here. Okay, so that's pretty much the basic first 8, and I think that's a big enough wreath to go on the front. So I'm going to start putting these down, and on these I am out of my fine tip glue pen, so I'm going to use this product, which is called Glossy Accents, and it dries clear, and it's just got a little bit of it's very wet glue, and then it dries clear. So I'm going to put some of this down here, and what I've done is I've put glue down on part way up the spine, and I'm leaving the ends open, and that's so that I can tuck the next one right underneath it, glue it down, and then have this end open so that I can get this set down so we're not always looking at the final end stems of this. So, and this glue, boy, once it's down, it's down. So, you want to be pretty sure where you want to put this stuff. Some of the people in my class had a hard time making this a real circular wreath. So that's when we started adding additional pieces, because then we could, if it came out a little lopsided, we could adjust the circular nature of it by adding more pieces. And you can see that's probably sufficient, but I liked it with a little bit more I don't know if heft is the right word, but to add some additional branches on here, I thought it made it look a little bit more like a real wreath. And so what I'm doing here is I am adding pieces kind of halfway between and over the top so that I get just a little bit more fullness, if you will. And then I think on some of these long ones that I've cut off, what I found is that you can just trim the tops down like this. So if you cut out one of the very longest ones, you can probably get 2 branches out of it. And so let's just see. What I'm going to do is just kind of put an extra layer all the way around this, and having some go in and some go out so that it looks a little bit more like it might in real life. And that also, if there's any of that shiny glue showing, this gives me the opportunity to have that not be so apparent. Here's another one of those long ones that I've cut in half. And so again, you can just trim that down and make a shorter one. Oh, it's got a little too much glue. I'm going to take a little bit of that off. And I think that looks pretty good. In fact, I think I'm going to stop there, and let me put some of this stuff away. Oh, this is something I always do, is I put a little piece of Scotch tape and a straight pin on the top of anything that might get blocked in its top, and it just saves me a little time looking for things later. So let me get some of this stuff out of the way. And there we have our card with our little wreath, and you can see this was the one I made originally, and I think that's much more pleasing to the eye with a bit more of the pine boughs on it. So I'll put these back in my little box here. And let's see, we have all the rest of our pieces here. The other thing that I put on this was some sequins, and it was just easier for me to put the sequins in this little container, and that way I could have them at hand rather than trying to dig them out of a bigger container. And I separated the colors because I think that I got that in that frosty sequin mix that had the silver and the pink and the blue, and for this project I just wanted the silver ones. So I've got my little 1/8 of an inch real red ribbon here, and I am going to tie a bow. I have to admit, I do like it a lot more when it's a real ribbon rather than a paper ribbon. It's just one of those idiosyncrasies about me. I think they look fine when other people do them, but for my projects, I really like to have real bows on them. So there's my little bow for the top of my wreath, and I'll cut this piece off here. And then there I can put my ribbon on the top of my wreath here. Let's see if I can coax these little ends down a little bit. All right. Now I want my tag to kind of fall in the middle, and I want my bells to kind of be off to the side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some glue dots. And let's see, my paper piercer. And I'm going to fold these glue dots over on themselves so they're about half their normal size. And I am going to use that right on the thread and the baker's twine and the top of my wreath here. And I'm going to put 2 of them on there. Oops, I forgot to fold that one. And get some of that all the way down to the card and some of it on the pine branches. There. All right. Now I'm going to trim off these top pieces here and just throw those away. And then I'm going to put another glue dot, again folded over on itself. Here. And put that on the back of my bow. Let's see, which side do I want to be the back? I think that one. Okay. And then I'm going to place that right, excuse me, right over the top of those pieces there. And there we have the tag and the little bells that are floating over the top of my wreath. Now I see that there's a little bit of some of that string over the top there, and I think I'm just going to trim that. Reach in there with my snips. It's wonderful that they cut right to the edges, because then I think I can just, let's see, use my tweezers and pull those pieces off. And take those little ends and kind of tuck them back down underneath the bow so that it's nice and neat looking. And there I've got, let me show you that detail up close. So my bow is hiding the little pieces of twine and thread here, and those bells could have been hung a little bit higher up, but I think that works for this. I just love the little extra detail on them. I think they're awfully cute, and I had a whole box of them, so I thought I'd use them up. Okay, so on the sequins here, oops, I closed my little jar. Certainly don't need this many. So what I'm going to do is put, again with the glue dot, a couple of these sequins around on the card. They showed that detail in the catalog on the card that they made, and I thought it was pretty attractive. So here, and I just realized as I look at this wreath that I have put this on with the words going the wrong direction. Well, you get the idea, and so you'll know not to do that yourself. And I'll have to fix this one later if I can, or just start over. But the sequins, the eye is attracted to odd numbers. So what I'm going to do is put 5 of them on here. On this card, I only put 4, and I really don't like it. So I am going to try and put 5 on here. I really do think that it's more pleasing to the eye when you have an odd number on there. So there is the the sequins added to the top of the card. And when you put yours together, you can do it so that your words are right side up. Let me just get this pulled out of the way here. I'm not going to take the time on camera to make that adjustments. So what you would do then is adhere this, and I just use snail. I didn't raise it because I think there's enough other things going on here that you really don't need to do that. So that would be the outside of your card. And then on the inside, I decided that I liked the idea of the stamped pine boughs rather than the actual pine boughs. And so I've got some garden green here, and I mounted the pines from the Pretty Pines stamp set. And let's see here, I need my piercing mat and a little bit of scratch paper here because I want these pines to kind of go off the corner here. And I found in doing this on other cards that putting the image down and then restamping it so that you kind of go in between those other boughs that are there gives kind of a more full effect of those pine boughs there. And so there we have, in fact, there's room almost for one more right in there. There we go. All right, so there's what it would look like, and yours would be much more attractive than mine if your words are on there right side up. So it's one of those that I think is simple and fast and is something that had pretty high impact. I never thought about putting black on a Christmas card, and so now I've gone crazy and I've got 2 more designs coming with the black and gold and white. Anyway, so this is the next in the Christmas card designs, cased from the catalog with a few little different embellishments. So I hope you like it, and I hope you'll give it a try. Thanks so much for stopping by and watching my YouTube channel today. Everything can be purchased here. Perhaps, I think this one punch is retired. But my guess is you have a little scallop punch that you can use, or you can certainly use the layering oval or circles that has both the outside scalloped edges and the plain inside edges. And all of that can be purchased on my website, lbedinger.stampinup.net. And if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to be your demonstrator. Let's see. This month, if you put an order in with me for $25 or more, you get a product gift from me at the end of the month. And the drawing this month is an envelope punch board and a Wink of Stella clear glitter pen. So anybody that puts an order with me goes into the drawing for that as well. So thanks very much for stopping by again, and I'll be back soon with a new video. Thanks. Bye.